One thing right off the bat, which makes sense with this bike, this e-bike comes in a really big box, but I like how they give you all the instructions right here and they make it really easy. So I'm going to scan that QR code, and really I think it should be only a few steps and pretty easy. Might have to fill the tires a bit. I'm going to see how they feel right now. They feel a little flat. Yeah, a little bit. There's a good amount of air in there though. Should be good enough to ride right away. And I don't think it would need to be charged, but we'll see. So I am so stoked. I mean, this bike is beautiful already. This e-bike right here is the Aventon Sinch.2 e-bike. This is the foldable one from Aventon. And yes, I have a lot to say. I will end up having a long-term review of this e-bike. Probably mid-July is when I'll release that, to really put it through the test and really put it through the ringer to see what it's made out of. Because after having it a week, I have plenty of good things to say about this e-bike in general. But before even getting into that, my first impressions of this specific model and company, I want to talk about two specific studies. Now, one is looking at who rides the most bikes, who really is the one that has that culture ingrained in them the most around the world. So I looked it up, and apparently the Netherlands is number one. About 26% of all trips include a bicycle. That's a drastic amount. Now, the most amount of bikes that are made in any particular country are China, but then I also looked at something that has to do with health. And that is, in the United States, the EPA said if half of all car trips were replaced by bike trips, it could replace almost $4 billion in avoided death costs and also reduce healthcare costs by increasing, obviously, physical activity. So there's a lot to get into just with the specifics of looking at studies and the benefits of riding a bike instead of driving a car every single place you go, but especially utilizing technology like an e-bike. So for me, I like to be out and about a ton, and even in the town that I live in, it's very bike friendly. There's so many bike lanes everywhere and so many parks, so you can go anywhere within a 15-mile radius without needing a car easily, even to the grocery store. I mean, there's so many grocery stores only 3 miles away from me, 2.5 miles, even 1 mile down the street. And so with this particular model e-bike, the reason why it was perfect for me is because of how much of it benefits around utility, because of how sturdy it is, how beefy it is, and how strong the motor is. I really have to say I recommend this just based off that. This is really a city bike more than anything else. When I look at the e-bikes that are more adventure friendly, more for the mountain biking and stuff like this, obviously just by first glance this is not it, and that has to go with the design. There's a lot of weight to this e-bike, and that's one of the biggest issues I think a lot of people will have, is if you're looking to really take this into more of an adventure type of e-bike where you plan to take it in and out of your car a ton, even though it's foldable, the weight, I just think it would be exhausting for a lot of people to carry this thing in and out, and even to have on the bike rack in the back of your car. It's just the weight distribution is not really there, even though it's foldable. If it was a little bit lighter or the frame was a little smaller, it would make more sense. Now, speaking of the comfort and the ride itself, so this bike is meant for those that are 4'11" to 6'2". That's the dimensions that they say on this website that it's a good fit for. And I'm 5'11", so I'm like almost in the middle of that height range. Well, not almost in the middle, actually pretty close to the top. So, but even though it's foldable and everything, I think it's a bit bumpy of a ride for rocky trails or anything like that. There's a lot of speed bumps. I purposely went over, even while I had groceries in the back on this basket. I almost said trunk, but I guess you can call it a trunk, right, if you put a basket on it. But no, in the basket in the back, I hit some speed bumps on purpose to see how well does the suspension handle it. Now, there's primarily suspension in the front, nothing in the back, and yeah, it felt like stuff was gonna fly out. I mean, I heard it. I heard that thud, and that's what it feels like when you're going over speed bumps or you're going over rigid trails and whatnot. You kind of feel, I mean, you're not gonna be totally shaky, on just like a normal trail, but no way is this a fit for mountain biking or anything. No way. I would not recommend that. It would be uncomfortable, and you'll probably damage the bike, you know, just by its weight, and the suspension is just not there for that. Now the tires may look like they can handle that, and the tires are beefy. I mean, it's handled a bunch of different pavements even while it's raining, and I had no issues with feeling confident going 20 miles an hour even while it's raining. And yes, I did purposely take this on a bike ride, even though again I didn't get it on video, in the rain, just to see if it could handle braking and handle the pavement. It did just fine. All right, y'all, bear with me with the noise, but there's a stop sign up there, so I'm gonna do a speed test with it on sport up to 20 miles an hour, and then I'm gonna hit the rear brake to see how fast does it stop. Again, I don't have some kind of fancy GoPro to test this, so this is the best I got. Wide angle on the iPhone. Let's go. Just from the throttle. All right, it's picking up some good speed. All right, now let's see how fast it can stop. I don't want to push it more than that. Ooh, that was a pretty good distance. I don't know how many feet, but I would say if you only had one brake working, it's more than good enough. But definitely use two when you're going that fast. This engine, the motor is too powerful for it to only be dependent on one brake, but hopefully that helped. The thing is, when looking at the braking, is always remember you're going to cover more distance and you're going to have to brake harder. So that makes me wonder, how long will the brakes last in time? That's why I want to do a long-term review in about another couple weeks, or maybe even another month, of saying, hey, and really grinding this thing down, how well did stuff like that last before I have to replace it, especially the motor, going uphill and using the throttle for things like that, or even the battery life. Like, hey, what was the drainage of the battery life? Because batteries don't last forever. You know, there's a depletion phase with every battery you use. It doesn't matter if it's a car, an iPhone, or even an e-bike. So I can't wait to see if I start noticing those differences, because as of right now, I can feel, I mean, these are great, fantastic brakes. The Tektro combined with the Shimano motor, I gotta say, I know it's gonna last for a long time. It's just, I'm probably gonna have to replace the brakes a lot sooner than other bikes I've had. I mean, even when I look at my Fuji bike, I haven't replaced the brakes on that thing in 4 years, you know, and I would ride it every summer and whatnot. All right, so this is how bright the lights are at night. I mean, you're gonna be seen. If you're worried about how good the lighting is and how bright that headlight is, look how much you can see. I mean, unfortunately, it's like 10 o'clock at night, so I'm trying not to talk too loud, but this is just in front of my house anyway. Now, let me hit one of the turn signals. I mean, look at that. It's like it may as well be a car. That's just so crazy. All right, so it's day 3 of me using this bike. And let me get that in focus. This is what I have. 2 hours and 27 minutes, 36 miles. It's at 27%. Now, have I been riding it with the pedal assist off? Not a chance. I've taken advantage of Eco and Tour the entire time. Only once for like 5 minutes did I push it to turbo just to see. And I'm telling you, even just Eco at gear 7, maybe 6, but gear 7 and 8 is so strong with the pedal assist. Like, it almost feels too easy to drop anything below 5. You know, 1, forget it. You'd have to be going uphill. I'm talking just for city riding, you know, regular flat roads like around the park and stuff like that, just going to a coffee shop, the farmer's market, things like this. I'm impressed. 27%. So I haven't had to charge it in 3 days. Now, a couple things in this 3-day update I wish this had. I wish I had a time stamp, you know, not a time stamp. I wish it just had a clock. I wish you can tell the time and or the date. That'd be really helpful, because it would just make it way less of a reason for me to have a smartphone somewhere attached. I just wish I was able to do that. And then the other thing too is, what's it been like going to the grocery store with this little basket? Well, this is from my old bike, so it's not the best in the world, but it's a little bouncy. You know, it's a little stiff in the back. I can hear the groceries bouncing up as I'm riding. I mean, in the front, forget it. By itself, when you don't have anything in the back, this thing is incredibly comfortable. I mean, I can hit all kinds of speed bumps, all kinds of stuff, and I don't feel a thing. it's just ba-doom, you know, really easy, really comfortable ride, especially with the seat. This thing is so comfortable. Not once have my legs been sore, obviously with it being an electric pedal assist bike, but have I been sore with the seat either, you know. But that's a quick 3-day update on just the battery power and just some thoughts so far. Let's see how you unfold it and how you fold it. So really simple, if it's already folded up, is you're gonna pull it apart from left to right. So it's always gonna open the same way, obviously, by that latch. And what I do is I like to pull on the front and then twist it. And use your legs too. You know, don't be afraid to use your body to reposition it. I mean, it could be a little awkward sometimes. And then boom, you snap that latch into place. And then I put the kickstand down with the pedals. You're just gonna push them down, pull them in. Same with this one. You're gonna fold it, pull it in, and then twist. Now with the handlebars, this is probably the easiest part of it all. Actually, it's the easiest folding part. It's always gonna fold over to the right side of the front tire. Just gonna pull this up, snatch that into place, push the lever down. Now one thing that I've seen happen pretty often is with folding it off and on, sometimes these wires come undone and you're just gonna snap them into place. I mean, that's probably why they're built like that, so they don't break if the tension is too strong. And then we're just gonna go back to folding it up. So folding it up is actually a little more trickier because I always gotta remember to hit the kickstand. Otherwise, it doesn't fold well, or it just feels weird being in between the folding portion, you know? So you're gonna lift this lever up, pull it down, latch opens up, push it all the way down. With the pedals, I do this next. You push them in and twist. I'll show you right here too. You push it in and twist. Again, remember to hit the kickstand, otherwise it feels weird to try to fold if you don't. And then you're gonna release this red lever, pull it up like that, and it takes a little bit of strength to actually snap it into place. And then what I do is I actually just use my knee to fold it like that, and then the tire kind of does the work for you. And I did that really weird, but it's just to give you an example. Scooch it into place and then boom, it's done. So we're just looking at giving a tour of the controls. The gears over here, this is the shift up, shift down. You have your throttle, you have 8 different gears, of course your brakes. These brakes are very strong, as I'll get into in the full review. All your controls right here are for everything right here. So number 1 is the lights. You hold the up button, the plus button, until the lights turn on. And I'll do a night test eventually, but you can see they get plenty bright. I mean, it's cloudy right now, but you can still visibly see them. Sometimes, especially around like an hour before sunset, I'll still have them on just for visibility's sake and safety. So we're gonna press that to turn them off. And the other thing too is there's a walking assist. So if you hold down the minus button, it's going to say walk. And it started going because it thought I was gonna walk. But the cool thing is it gives it a little power, a little juice. So it's effortless, especially if you have a lot of weight on the back, or maybe you're just tired, maybe for the elderly especially. But powering it on is holding this for a few seconds. You have your turn signals left and right. You just tap it once. And so here's an idea of what it looks like. They're really bright, and the thing is, this is a bike, you know, it's not a car, so I still use my turn signals. If you don't know how to use your turn signals, maybe that's for a different video. But you can see I rode this thing for 90 miles. I got almost 6 hours on this in total time. My favorite gears, or my favorite pedal assist, are Eco and Tour. Yes, you have Sport and Turbo, but I use those if I really have a hill or something. But luckily, where I live, it looks like this most of the time. It's pretty flat. There's barely any big hills around here, so I can't wait to test that. For me, keeping it at Eco or Tour and at a 7 or 8 gear, that is powerful. Like, this thing rides so well, I haven't needed to go lower than that at all, or higher than that on the pedal assist. Kickstand works fantastic. It holds a lot of weight. I haven't had this thing tip over with the kickstand. I mean, if you think about it, I have to like really pull it for it to even lose balance. Like, let's just see what, and this is in the grass. Yeah, it holds really steady. What do I think about the tires? The tires, I prefer them to be this thick on an e-bike because of hitting bumps. Maybe if you accidentally hit a pothole or something. They are really beefy and they're really strong. I mean, you gotta have the PSI at 35. That's what it says right there. I'll actually get pretty close. Inflate the 35 PSI. And that's very important because when you first get this bike, there's going to be air that's lost just from it sitting in the factory or after development, after it's put together. I highly recommend making sure you get it to 35 because I rode it the first time without doing that, and I noticed that the wheels were a little squishy. You know, it's a little risky. But with the gears, they shift seamlessly. Haven't had any issues with that either. And you can see again, I've gotten this thing really dirty. I rode it in the rain. Excuse the basket. I do. This is really sloppily put together until I find one that's good enough to buy, but it works. Let's put some twine on there, a rope, and it holds everything. You know, I don't recommend doing it this way. Probably should have got some zip ties. But the one thing I will say about the brakes after a few days of riding this is they are a little squeaky. You know, I probably have to add some grease, well, maybe not grease, but I don't know. I have to double check them or make sure like a rock didn't get in them, especially the front brake. Now, I don't notice anything wrong while I'm riding this as far as it affecting my ride or it slowing me down like there's anything wrong with the brakes, but just double check everything. You know, make sure all the gears are in place properly, and especially with your cables, because these cables were apart, and you just want to make sure that, especially with this back wheel for me, and this is just because of putting it together, the wires were a little detached, so I had to make sure they were back in because they are pretty close, you know. It's going to be a while before winter time, so I don't have any plans to test this in the winter, obviously, anytime soon. But yeah, that's my initial impressions of how this bike is. The seat adjustment and the handlebar adjustment are really simple too. Another thing is making sure this is adjusted on properly to your liking with the tools that come in. And yeah, that's a quick little tour of everything about this bike. I love this thing. So this really is one of those e-bikes that will have you adopted to a new lifestyle altogether, or any e-bike, but especially this brand. I really love it. I'll have a link on where you can get it. It is an affiliate link for Aventon. And other than that, I really appreciate you watching this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.